The European Breeders' Fund was initially set up to boost the prize money levels for maiden races. 40 years later, it remains one of the biggest sponsors in European racing. And we spoke to CEO Kerry Murphy and Chairman John O'Connor about the durability of this original self-help scheme in Europe.
Well, the discussions around the creation of the European Breeders' Scheme started in 1982. And it was really a small group of breeders who'd heard that, and this is a very familiar story, I'm afraid, that prize money was going to be cut quite drastically in Britain particularly, and it was the levy board announcing that no prize money was going to be available for 2-year-old maidens, which obviously from a breeder's perspective was quite unpalatable and really unviable. So they got together with some Irish breeders and discussions began. In parallel to that, prize money was really integral to whether they were producing horses to race or producing them for the sales. So they started this discussion, and by 1983, within 8 months really, the European Breeders' Fund was launched, and they had decided to go to stallion owners and ask them to fund it, which they, with very little resistance, stumped up the money to start the fund rolling in 1983, and the first prize money was paid out in 1984. So there is a mechanism which we call the graduated payment scheme for pulling that money in, and we have over 650 stallions registered throughout Europe. France joined in 1986 and then Germany shortly after. So we charge the stallion owners and invite them to register in July, and there is a mechanism for charging them. So it's a very fair way of bringing that money in. So the small stallion owners pay a minimum fee if you're covering under a certain number of mares and for under a certain fee, and then if you cover over 65 to 85 mares and then again back up to 121 mares, it's a process where you're charged more. So it's the average value of a nomination sold, and then there's a mechanism for charging 1 times or 2 times or 3 times depending on the number of mares covered.
It's a kind of very cohesive piece of support from the stallion masters right across Europe. Big, small, national hunt, flat, and that cohesion I think is really important. And you know, it's a way of the stallion industry giving back to the industry that it generates its income from.
Because of the strength of the European stallion market, it's become ever so more important. So in the 40 years it's been running, the income from European stallions into the fund has grown and grown, and that's really due to the success of those European stallions and the fees raising and the number of mare owners using them. So we pull the money in, and then that money goes straight back out into prize money the following year. We have good international support. Shadai Farms support by registering most of their stallions, and they have a very global approach to their breeding organisations. They encourage people to their sales. We also have Lane's End, who are long-term supporters of the EBF, and they've decided this year to put Flightline into the EBF, which is great news for us, and it means that they clearly want to give him some appeal maybe to European breeders. They obviously believe that he could perhaps translate from the dirt to the turf, and if he does that, that's a huge credit to them. So we're delighted to see Flightline being put into the EBF this year.